Chapter 1, You're Just Paranoid. The first time Claire called me paranoid, it was almost a joke. We were sitting on the couch, half watching a documentary while she answered emails on her phone. I made a comment, something casual, like, "You've been working late a lot lately." No edge to it. Just an observation. She didn't even look up. "You're being paranoid," she said, lightly. "It's called a job, Evan." She smiled. Tapped her screen. Shifted the conversation. But the word stuck. Paranoid. Like a piece of gum on the bottom of my thoughts. I didn't push it then. I didn't want to be that guy, the clingy boyfriend, the one who gets suspicious over every late night and unread message. Claire was always independent. Outgoing. Half the reason I fell for her was how self-assured she was. But lately, that confidence had turned into something else. Something cooler. Slippery. It was small things, at first. The way she turned her phone face down, even when it wasn't buzzing. The way she'd say, "Oh, I already told you that," about things I knew she hadn't. The way she seemed just a little too rehearsed when explaining why she had to reschedule our dinner again. I tried to brush it off. I told myself she was stressed, that I was overthinking things. But it kept happening. One night I got up to get water around 1 a.m. and saw her downstairs, phone to her ear, whispering. When I asked about it later, she said it was a podcast playing through her AirPods. Claimed I must have been dreaming. A few days after that, I noticed her location was turned off in our shared calendar app. She said she was updating the privacy settings after a software glitch. "You're seriously not going full tracker boy on me, right?" she teased. I laughed it off. But something was off. The kind of off you can't explain, but can't ignore either. And every time I asked a question, just a small one, just to understand, she'd tilt her head and sigh, like I was being unreasonable. "You're reading into nothing, Evan." Seriously. Maybe I was. Maybe I wanted to believe I was. But I couldn't shake the feeling that the version of her I was living with wasn't the one who came home every night. And sooner or later, I was going to find out why. Chapter 2, Slipping Patterns. The first real crack didn't come from a fight. It came from breakfast. She said she had a client meeting that morning, early. Some kind of brand consulting gig she was doing on the side for a wellness startup. "They're really flaky," she added, pouring almond milk into her coffee. "Always rescheduling last minute." I nodded. Didn't say much. But the night before, I'd seen her pack workout gear. Not a laptop. Not a folio. No charger. Just leggings, running shoes, and her favorite sports bra, the one she used when she wanted to feel noticed. I didn't ask. But I remembered. And a few hours later, when I stopped by the store near her supposed meeting spot, I saw her car parked 2 blocks away from where she said she'd be. Engine cold. No client in sight. That night, she told me she was wiped. That the meeting was draining and the founder had no vision. She poured a glass of wine, kicked her feet up, and asked if I wanted to re-watch that miniseries we started. I sat beside her, nodding, trying not to drown in the feeling that something about our life had been quietly restaged, like someone had moved the furniture half an inch, just enough to trip over in the dark. Later that week, I found myself replaying conversations in my head. Small things. "Claire, you've been so distant lately." Me, "I've literally been home every night this week." Claire, "Exactly. Physically here. Mentally gone." I started realizing what she was doing. She wasn't just lying. She was rewriting. Turning my suspicion into distance. My observation into emotional withdrawal. Every time I noticed something strange, she made it about me. "You used to be funnier. You've been more on edge. You need to relax." She'd say it all with a smile, half concerned, half condescending, and somehow I'd end up apologizing for noticing. It was like being gaslit, but polite. Like getting erased by someone who still kissed you goodnight. That weekend, we were supposed to go to her cousin's birthday dinner. At the last minute, she told me she wasn't feeling well and needed to rest. But when I checked her Instagram the next day, she'd posted a picture of herself at a rooftop bar. The caption was vague. The angle made it hard to tell who was with her. I asked. She said it was an old photo. From last summer. I nodded. But I checked the metadata. It was taken the night of the party. At this point, I knew two things. 1. She was lying. 2. She was still trying to convince me she wasn't. And somewhere in between those two truths, I started building my own version of the story. Because if she wasn't going to be honest, the evidence would have to speak for her. Chapter 3, Reset Weekend. Claire called it a reset weekend, like we were a phone stuck in a glitch. We've both been tense, she said casually, as if the last 3 months of gaslighting and emotional static were just a mild signal disruption. Let's get away. No work, no phones. Just us. She offered it like a gift, voice light, smile soft, the way she always did when she wanted to steer the narrative without actually admitting anything was wrong. I agreed. Of course I did. Because I needed to see what she'd do when she thought she was in control. She picked the hotel, a sleek boutique spot downtown with minimalist furniture and LED mood lighting that probably cost a fortune to make guests feel like they were unplugging. It had a wellness theme. Of course it did. I told her I'd meet her there after work. She said she'd be late. A last-minute client emergency had come up, and she didn't want me waiting around. Check in, decompress, she told me. Order something indulgent. I'll be there soon. When I arrived, the woman at the front desk smiled warmly and handed me 2 keycards. Ms. Claire already called to confirm, she said. You're in 902. Great corner room. Claire had checked in already. Not physically, but she'd made the arrangements. Personally requested the high floor. I went upstairs. The room was beautiful. Too beautiful, maybe. It smelled faintly of lavender and something else. Citrus, maybe. And under the quiet hum of the air conditioning, I felt the subtle pressure of a performance being staged. Claire arrived 2 hours later, looking flawless. Not rushed. Not flustered. Flawless. She smiled when she walked in, breezing past me like we just met for the first time. Kissed me on the cheek, dropped her bag, and kicked off her shoes in one smooth motion. God, that client, she groaned. You would not believe the chaos. She poured herself a glass of wine before I could offer one. Her phone buzzed twice. She didn't check it, but she didn't silence it either. We watched a movie. She laughed louder than usual. Touched my hand more than usual. Suggested we take a selfie, something she hadn't done in months. I went along with it, but I didn't smile. She didn't notice. That night, she curled against me like nothing had changed. And for a moment, I almost let myself believe her. Almost. The next morning, she got dressed quietly while I was still half asleep. I've got brunch with Jamie, she said, zipping her bag. You sleep in. Take your time. I'll see you at home later. She kissed me lightly on the forehead and left. I took a long shower. Let the silence of the room settle over me. Then I packed up and headed downstairs. At the front desk, the same woman from the day before smiled and said, "Oh, you left your second key card in the room. We'll go ahead and toss it, unless you need it back." I stopped. I didn't leave a second card, I said slowly. I still have mine. She blinked, caught off guard. It was on the nightstand, so we assumed. I smiled, small and polite. No worries. You can toss it. But as I walked out into the late morning light, the puzzle in my chest rearranged itself. Because I hadn't used the second keycard. And Claire never touched it. So who did? Chapter 4, The room key. I told the front desk they could toss the key. Smiled, nodded, walked out like it meant nothing. But it stayed with me, not the card, but the question. If I had my key, and Claire never touched the other one, who used it? That night at home, Claire was already there, curled on the couch in sweats, watching some baking show she used to say was background noise. She looked relaxed. Familiar. And for a moment, it felt like I was the one who'd been somewhere strange. Brunch was good? I asked, dropping my keys into the bowl by the door. She nodded without looking up. Yeah. Jamie's a disaster right now. She might come crash here next weekend. That cool? I told her sure. But inside, I felt something sharp shift sideways. Jamie had moved to Seattle 2 months ago. There'd been a going-away dinner. Claire cried. But I didn't correct her. I just logged the inconsistency. Later that night, after she went to bed, I opened my laptop and started digging. Not through her phone, that was pointless. Claire was careful. Too careful. But she wasn't always meticulous with old tech. And upstairs, tucked into a drawer beneath her scarves and a half-broken curling iron, was her old work laptop. We'd set it up together once. Back when we still shared passwords, playlists, and dinner plans. Back when things weren't coated in guilt. I booted it up, half expecting it to be wiped. It wasn't. Outdated, yes. But still alive. Barely. The desktop loaded like it had something to hide. I clicked through old files first. Nothing useful. Then the email client. She'd disconnected the account, but the cache still held fragments. Subject lines. Timestamps. Ghosts of conversations. And one stood out. Ellison Boutique Hotel confirmation, Claire R. It wasn't the place we'd stayed that weekend. It was a different boutique spot across town. Different name. Different dates. 3 weeks earlier. Tuesday night. A reservation for one. Except, Claire had told me she was hosting a women's networking event that night. And the email confirmation was timestamped just minutes after we had dinner at home, the night she said she was too tired to go out and turned in early. I kept digging. Found a calendar sync log. Partial. Corrupted. But there, half visible. Wellness dinner, room 507. I didn't know what I was looking at yet. But I knew what I wasn't looking at. And that was the truth. Chapter 5, The Old Laptop. I didn't sleep that night. I told myself I was just going to check a few things, confirm a date, glance at a name. But 5 minutes turned into 2 hours, and soon I was elbow deep in cached emails, old browser history, and half-synced calendar remnants. Claire hadn't wiped the laptop. She thought disconnecting her accounts was enough. But cached data doesn't care about clean exits. It just waits. What I found wasn't explosive. Not yet. But it was. Persistent. Clumps of inconsistencies. Meeting invites that didn't match what she'd told me. Dinner reservations at restaurants I'd never heard about. Invoices sent to names I didn't recognize, a C. Renner, a J. Linwood. Clients, maybe. Or something else. And then I found the hotel list. Buried deep in her Chrome autofill history, linked to an old travel rewards site she hadn't fully logged out of. 4 boutique hotels. 3 cities. Every stay booked midweek. Every reservation for one adult. Every time, she told me she was either working late or staying over with a friend to avoid burnout. I opened a spreadsheet and started logging the details. Side by side. Matching each entry to the messages I remembered, the excuses she gave. I didn't have it all, yet, but the patterns were there. The hotel from our reset weekend was just the most recent. She'd been running this long before the word paranoid left her mouth. The next day, Claire was all warmth and coffee. She brought me a croissant from the bakery down the street, kissed my cheek, and asked if I wanted to plan a fall getaway. Something quiet, she said. Disconnected. I nodded. Smiled. Let her believe she was winning the scene. But behind her, on the counter, my phone buzzed. It was a message from someone I hadn't heard from in over a year. Maya Reynolds. Hey. I know this is random. But I think we should talk. It's about Claire. Chapter 6, The Man in the System. Maya Reynolds. I hadn't heard that name in over a year. Maybe longer. She was one of Claire's old friends from before we met, someone who'd been around just enough to be familiar, but never close. I always got the feeling Claire didn't like me talking to her. Now, out of nowhere, Maya wanted to talk. I messaged her back. About what? She replied almost immediately. Not over text. Can we meet? We picked a cafe halfway between our neighborhoods. Neutral ground. When I walked in, she was already there, stirring a tea bag into a chipped ceramic cup. She looked tired in the way people look after holding on to something too long. Thanks for coming, she said. I nodded. Sat. I'm not going to draw this out, she said, glancing around. Claire did this to someone else. Someone I used to date. I stared at her. What do you mean, did this? Maya exhaled. The manipulation. The erasing. The gaslighting. The fake client meetings. She made him think he was losing it. He started recording things just to check his own memory. I didn't say anything. She reached into her bag and pulled out a worn envelope. Inside, printouts of emails. Text screenshots. One message read. Don't worry. He's unraveling on his own. I just need to document it. Same wording Claire used when she told her friends I was on edge. Same phrasing from the calendar note I'd found in her laptop. Maya tapped the table. She plays long games, Evan. Psychological. She plants doubts, starts small, isolates you emotionally so when you finally do react, you look unhinged. I didn't want to believe it. But I already did. Maya leaned in. She told him he was imagining things too. That he was jealous, obsessive. When he started asking questions, she made him out to be controlling. Eventually, he stopped trying. Just walked away. And you? I asked. She iced me out. Said I'd broken girl code by not warning her. But I tried. I really tried. I looked at the stack of evidence again. The names matched the ones from Claire's calendar. So did the dates. I thought I was piecing this together alone. Turns out, I was just late to the crime scene. That night, I couldn't sleep. My mind was on fire. So I reached out to someone else, a friend who works in IT compliance and physical security for hospitality chains. We hadn't spoken in a while, but when I told him what I needed, he didn't ask why. Some boutique hotels use third-party check-in logs. You'd be surprised what gets cached. I sent him the hotel names. Asked for help accessing any metadata or keycard logs tied to guest activity, entry times, door assignments, anything. A few days later, he messaged me. Ellison Boutique and Oakwood East both use a system called RoomSnap. And yeah, they log everything. He attached a sample. Room 507. 2 different keycard entries. 10 minutes apart. Player's check-in. And someone else's. The system even listed initials. C, R, J, L. I stared at those letters for a long time. Then I saved the file to a new folder on my desktop. Labeled it. Not paranoid. Chapter 7, Call from 214. Claire's car was a mess of yoga mats, protein bar wrappers, and half-drunk water bottles. She never let me drive it, said she was picky about alignment. But that week, she asked me to take it in for a tire pressure warning. While I waited at the shop, I plugged her phone into the dashboard to charge. Just instinct. The screen lit up, no passcode needed, just a swipe. She must have forgotten. I didn't plan to snoop. But I tapped the recent calls out of habit. And there it was. 214. A call made 3 days earlier, at 10:53 p.m. Not a name. Just the number. I stared at it, the digits burning a hole in the screen. Later that night, I opened the room snap metadata file from the Ellison Hotel again. Room 214. That's where the second keycard was activated from. The guest listed only as J. L. had entered from that room, then used a backup card to access room 507, Claire's. I searched 214 online. It was a Dallas area code. Same city. Same night. Same hotel. I pulled up the number in a reverse lookup tool. Got nothing but a generic VoIP carrier. But I knew what I was looking at. She wasn't just seeing someone else. She was communicating with him from my car. That night, Claire came home humming the same song she always played after her wellness retreats. I booked us a float therapy session, she said, slipping her shoes off at the door. Something gentle. We've both been carrying too much. She handed me a green juice. Kissed me lightly. I looked at her and saw it clearly for the first time, the woman she was performing, and the woman she thought no one would ever see. While she showered, I downloaded the full call log from the car's onboard system and exported it to a USB. I flagged every number with a timestamp after midnight, every call labeled unknown or private. It wasn't just 214. There were multiple. Some she deleted from her phone. But not from the car. They were all still there. The systems were keeping track, even if she thought she'd covered her tracks. And the more I traced, the clearer it became. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't possessive. I was being rewritten. And this time? I was writing everything down. Chapter 8, The One Who Warned Me. Maya messaged again a few days later. I found something. Want to meet? We met at the same cafe. This time, she looked more resolved. Less cautious. Like someone who finally realized staying quiet wasn't protecting anyone. She slid a manila folder across the table. Inside were printouts, old messages, screenshots from years ago, calendar exports. I recognized the email handle Claire used for her freelance projects. And I recognized the way she phrased things. He's starting to act weird. Might need a backup plan. Trying to make it seem like his idea to step back. Can't have two reputations ruined, just one. Maya didn't look at me while I read them. She just sipped her tea. She had a whole system, she said quietly. Would get close, find leverage, and plant just enough concern in people's minds so if anything blew up, the guy looked unstable. She did this to your ex? I asked. Maya nodded. And someone before him. A designer. He moved to Oregon. Deleted all his social media. I let out a slow breath. How did she even keep it all straight? She didn't have to, Maya said. She didn't care if she lied twice. She only cared that no one called her on it. I flipped the folder closed. Why now? I asked. She finally met my eyes. Because I heard about her new project. The one you're bankrolling. I blinked. What project? The coaching platform, Maya said. She's building a women's empowerment brand. Using your name. Your tech. Your contacts. I laughed once, sharp and hollow. Maya didn't. She's already setting up the next stage, Evan. She's going to burn your reputation while she builds hers. That night, I searched my inbox. There it was. A registration email for a domain I hadn't signed off on, Wellness Circle Collective. Com. Registered under my LLC's shared business plan. Claire must have used saved credentials from my laptop. She wasn't leaving me. She was preparing to replace me. And by the time she was done, I'd be the one everyone thought lost his grip. Unless I got there first. Chapter 9, Not Just Cheating. For weeks, I thought it was just about another man. I was prepared for betrayal. For the quiet devastation of infidelity. For the sick feeling of realizing the person you trusted most had simply chosen someone else. But this wasn't just cheating. This was construction. And I was the project. It started with a voicemail. One I wasn't supposed to hear. It was buried in the car's Bluetooth memory, tucked behind a system cache most people would never check. But Claire's mistake was thinking I was like most people. I'd synced her car to my laptop to download the onboard logs. While I was sorting through timestamps and coordinates, I found the file, a voice message. From a number not in her contacts. I clicked play. "Hey, Claire. Just checking in. You okay after last night? I know you said Evan was being intense again, and that you didn't feel safe, but I hope you got some rest." My stomach dropped. She told someone I was unsafe. She told someone I made her feel afraid. I sat back in my chair, staring at the ceiling, listening to the echo of that word. Not unfaithful. Not distant. Not annoying. Unsafe. It wasn't just betrayal, it was groundwork. She was laying a foundation for a version of me that didn't exist. And then I realized. This was probably not the only version she'd shared. I went back into the folder Maya had given me. Looked again, slower this time. Not just for cheating, but for character assassination. And there it was. An email from Claire to someone named Jenna. Subject line, just in case. I'm honestly getting worried. His mood swings are unpredictable. I don't want to escalate, but I've started documenting things. That word again. Documenting. She wasn't just trying to cover her tracks, she was trying to preempt mine. Telling people I was acting off, planting concern in their minds before I even realized something was wrong. Telling friends I was withdrawing. Telling her clients she had limited availability because I was taking up more space lately. One by one, she was building a narrative. Not just of a man being cheated on, but of a man who couldn't be trusted with the truth. I thought I was watching a relationship fall apart. But Claire was writing a character for me. One she could point to if anything got messy. One that would make her look like the calm, reasonable survivor if I ever decided to tell the real story. She wasn't just lying to me. She was lying for me. Fabricating entire conversations. Rewriting tone. Inventing mood swings. Layering it so subtly that if I ever raised my voice, even once, it would look like she was right. But she miscalculated. Because while she was documenting fiction, I was quietly assembling evidence. And soon? The version of me she was pushing would collide with the version she couldn't control. The one who kept the receipts. Chapter 10, Digital Trap. There's a point where suspicion becomes certainty. And after that, the only thing that matters is the documentation. So I stopped reacting. Stopped asking. Stopped pretending to be confused. And I started building the trap. The first thing I did was clone our home Wi-Fi router. It was an old trick, one I'd used years ago when testing signal interference in smart homes. Set up a passive network, identical credentials, invisible to her phone. Every time she connected, I got a ping. Every time she disconnected, I saw it. From there, I set up a low-profile location tracker using her old iPad, the one she'd forgotten still synced to her backup iCloud. I kept it on airplane mode most of the time, activating it only when she left the house. 2 weeks in, I had patterns. Every Thursday night she claimed to be at wellness panels, her device went offline in the same spot, a boutique hotel 30 miles outside the city, nestled near a vineyard. Quiet. Upscale. The kind of place with spa packages and discreet parking. Her calendar called it Evening Breathwork Series. I called it what it was, Cover. Then came the video. Our garage had an old security cam wired into the home automation system. It hadn't worked in months, or so Claire thought. I fixed it. The next time she left for her overnight women's retreat, I checked the footage. 2 people got into her car. She drove. He ducked. Same guy who'd shown up on the room snap logs, J.L. Not just a fling. A habit. And she still came home the next morning, smiling, asking if I wanted pancakes. The last step was access. My friend, the one in hotel systems security, sent me a dump of room snap entries for the Ellison Hotel and Oakwood East. Guest logs. Keycard timestamps. Entry/exit metadata. It was all there. Claire R. 10:42 p.m. room 507. J. L. 10:39 p.m. room 507. Claire, 11:16 p.m. back exit. J. L. 11:18 p.m. same. I didn't need photos. I didn't need confessions. I had logs. And that meant Claire's carefully constructed story, the one where I was paranoid, possessive, spiraling, was about to unravel. Because gaslighting only works when the light stays off. And I was about to flip the switch. Chapter 11, Room 507. The Ellison wasn't grand, but it had that curated, self-important charm. Industrial lighting. Velvet textures. Minimalist design meant to look effortless but cost a fortune to pull off. I'd passed the building 100 times without noticing it. Funny how invisible places become visible when you're looking for ghosts. I arrived just after 6. I wasn't in a rush. The lobby was almost empty, just a young woman behind the front desk tapping at a tablet and a middle-aged man in a blazer trying to carry 3 coffee cups at once. No one looked at me twice, and that was the goal. I dressed deliberately forgettable, jeans, gray pullover, clean sneakers. I didn't want to blend in. I wanted to disappear. I gave the clerk my name, a fake one I'd registered less than 24 hours earlier, tied to a burner email and a prepaid Visa card. The reservation had gone through without a hitch. No ID required. She handed me the key with the same bland expression every front desk person learns in training. Room 507, she said. Elevators are just to your left. The room was quiet. Clean. Tastefully impersonal. Everything about it was designed to feel luxurious without revealing anything specific, a sort of curated blankness. Soft gray walls. Chrome fixtures. The faint scent of lemongrass and white tea pumping from the wall diffuser. But I wasn't here for the view. I wasn't here for the robe on the back of the door or the overpriced water bottle on the nightstand. I was here because Claire had been here. 2 weeks ago. Same floor. Same room. She'd told me she was attending a breathwork seminar. Had smiled at me over breakfast that morning and said she felt aligned lately. She had no idea I already knew about the reservation. No clue I'd watched her location vanish near this address and then reappear 7 hours later, 3 neighborhoods away. I walked the perimeter of the room slowly, letting my fingertips brush the edges of the dresser, the handle of the mini-fridge, the arm of the navy blue reading chair. None of it meant anything on its own. But in context it was a crime scene disguised as a spa retreat. And then I sat down. Same edge of the bed she probably used when she slipped off her heels. Same blanket pulled tight and tucked at the corners. I pulled the folded paper from my jacket pocket, the one the desk clerk had handed me after a few well-worded questions about vendor audit data. She hadn't looked at the sheet twice. Just printed it, folded it, slid it across the counter like it wasn't the last thread holding up someone's reputation. I opened it. Read it once. Then again. Room 507, electronic entry log. 10:39 p.m. J. L. 10:42 p.m. C. R. 11:16 p.m. C. R. Exit. 11:18 p.m. J. L. Exit. 3-minute gap on the way in. 2-minute gap on the way out. She arrived after him. She left before him. 37 minutes inside, and not one of them was spent alone. She hadn't even tried to be subtle. She counted on never being questioned. Claire had bet the entire story on one thing, that I would trust her more than I trusted my own instincts. And for a while, she'd been right. But not anymore. I stayed in the room for an hour. Didn't unpack. Didn't touch the bed again. Just sat in the Navy chair and stared out at the skyline. At one point I imagined what she looked like, sitting right there in that spot. Fresh from a lie. Hair down. Lip gloss intact. Maybe she'd even texted me from that chair, headed to sleep. Love you, long day. I almost laughed. The woman I loved wasn't a person anymore. She was a curated interface. A well-designed front-end experience built on code I hadn't written. But now? Now I had access to the back end. And she'd left debug mode wide open. Chapter 12, The Showdown. Claire always loved to perform. At parties, she told stories with her hands, her laugh always just a little louder than the moment called for. In photos, she tilted her head slightly, eyes soft, like she was surprised to be admired. Even in arguments, her voice stayed measured, the calm one, the collected one, while I struggled to match her poise without sounding cold. That night, she was performing again. Our living room had been transformed for her wellness circle gathering. Throw blankets draped over chairs. Candles everywhere. Bowls of citrus-infused water and Himalayan salt. Her brand name, Lumina Circle, printed on folded cardstock signs near the vision boards. I stood in the doorway, watching her move from guest to guest, floating. Her tone was airy, her words full of phrases like sacred boundary and energetic alignment. She looked like someone who had never told a lie in her life. And maybe, to them, she hadn't. But tonight, that was going to change. I waited until she had everyone seated. A dozen women, each with a journal in their lap and a mug of ginger tea in their hand. Claire stood in front, barefoot on a woven mat, ready to guide them into breathwork. And then she saw me. Standing in the hallway, holding a plain white envelope. Her expression shifted, just for a second. The practiced serenity faltered. She blinked once. Twice. Then smiled too fast, like she could still recover the scene. "Hey, babe," she said lightly. "We're just about to start." I walked forward. Didn't say anything. Just held out the envelope. The silence in the room thickened. She hesitated, then took it, flipping it open with the same confidence she used to open her packages of sponsored skincare. I watched her eyes scan the first page. And then everything in her face dropped. She didn't blink. Didn't breathe. Just stood there, holding the hotel logs, the entry records, the call history, the messages. All of it, printed neatly. Labeled. Timestamped. A beat passed. Then I spoke. "Room 507, I said quietly. "Same place you stayed last month. Same man, too." A woman sitting near the front glanced at Claire, confused. I didn't raise my voice. Didn't throw anything. Didn't ask for an explanation. I just stood in the truth she thought I'd never find. Claire looked up, eyes wide and wet, but not with guilt. With calculation. She was already searching for a new narrative. A way to twist this into a misinterpretation. An accident. A misunderstanding. But it was too late for that. I turned toward the women still seated. "Take your time finishing the session," I said. "But just so you know, Lumina Circle is built on a stolen identity, fraudulently registered using my company's credentials. So if she's offered any of you funding, you may want to check whose name is actually on the paperwork." I didn't look back at her. Didn't need to. The silence behind me was the loudest thing I'd ever heard. Chapter 13, Offline. Claire didn't come home that night. She didn't call. Didn't text. Didn't leave a note. But when I walked through the door, I knew she'd been there, just long enough to erase herself. Half the closet was empty. Her favorite tote bag gone. Jewelry stand cleared. She'd taken the things she wore in public, the clothes that helped her perform ease and control. But she left behind the things that didn't matter on Instagram. A stray slipper near the bed. A half-used serum on the bathroom counter. The ring sat in the sink basin, like it had fallen off mid-rinse. But Claire never forgot details like that. It wasn't an accident. It was punctuation. A soft period at the end of a script she thought she'd written alone. I expected anger. Noise. Retaliation. Instead, I got silence. The next morning, she disappeared from her main social accounts. Her carefully managed Instagram page, the one with curated affirmations and filtered sunrise shots, went private. Her Twitter went blank. LinkedIn still listed founder, Lumina Circle, but the company's website. Dead link. Just a 404 screen and an unstyled error message. She vanished like someone trying to outrun a fire she set herself. But someone had already saved the receipts. Screenshots from the Wellness Circle started circulating in private Discord groups. A thread appeared on a message board I hadn't visited in years. Woman exposed mid-event for faking an identity theft story. Room logs don't lie. I didn't share anything. I didn't need to. Someone else had. One of the women in her circle, probably. Maybe the one who'd asked a quiet question as I was leaving. Maybe the one who picked up the envelope after Claire dropped it. It didn't matter who. The story was moving on its own now. Two of her brand affiliates quietly severed ties within days. One emailed me directly, not to apologize, not really, but to distance themselves. They had used my business credentials, unknowingly, they claimed. They thanked me for clarifying ownership of the IN. The message ended with a sentence I kept reading over. We regret any confusion this may have caused. Confusion. That was the brand she had built me into, a man of contradictions and misunderstandings. One day, distant. The next, erratic. Unsteady. Intense. And now? Now the confusion had a paper trail. I wrote a post. Not a tell-all. No names. No revenge. Just truth. A clean, quiet Medium article titled Digital Footprints, How to Protect Yourself When the Gaslight Has Wi-Fi. It was about metadata. About version history. About how sometimes the evidence doesn't scream, it waits. The post didn't go viral. But it moved. A therapist referenced it in a thread on emotional manipulation. A friend from college told me to say, "This is what happened to me." I didn't have the words until now. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. I hadn't written it to reclaim my voice. I'd written it to remind myself I still had one. Chapter 14, No Further Access. She came back on a Tuesday. No appointment, no text. Just the quiet crunch of tires pulling into the gravel, and the soft but deliberate knock on the front door, not frantic, not hesitant. Measured. Like she'd practiced it. I watched her through the window for a moment before answering. She looked unfinished. Hair pulled back, face bare. No blazer. No curated energy. Just Claire, standing in a shadow of herself, arms crossed tight against the fall wind like she wasn't sure what season she was walking into. When I opened the door, I didn't say anything. She didn't either. There was no grand apology waiting on her tongue, no dramatic monologue like the ones she used to rehearse in the mirror when she thought I wasn't listening. Just silence, thick and taut. Finally, she spoke. I don't even know what story you've been telling people. There was a flicker of the old tone there, not quite accusation, but the soft implication that I had misrepresented her. As if the story she was caught in was someone else's fiction. I didn't answer. So she tried again. Look, I know things got complicated. She paused, studying my face like it was a security question she hadn't prepped for. "I didn't want to hurt you," she said. "I just didn't think it would go this far." The words landed soft, like a blanket tossed over something sharp. But I didn't need comfort. And I wasn't confused. I stepped forward, just enough that the air shifted between us. Not threatening, just clear. "You didn't think stealing my business identity would go that far?" I asked, voice even. She blinked. "You didn't think calling me unstable to your friends, to your clients, would go that far?" "Nothing." "You didn't think I'd check the logs? The entries? The metadata? That I'd notice how your retreats always ended in boutique hotels with someone who used a key 3 minutes before you did?" Claire looked down then, like the concrete offered a better way out. She didn't apologize. Didn't defend herself. Because there was nothing left to defend. Just a version of her that only worked when I agreed to stay quiet. And I wasn't quiet anymore. "You told me it was all in my head," I said. "Gaslighting me until I questioned whether I even saw what I saw." She looked up, finally. But I was already done. "And now," I added, stepping back, "you don't have access. Not to my business. Not to my time. Not to the person you kept trying to rewrite." I closed the door. Not with a bang. Just a click. Soft. Absolute. And for the first time in months, I didn't feel the need to double-check the lock. Epilogue, version history. It's strange how quiet the truth can be. No fireworks. No applause. No final, cinematic confrontation with perfect lighting and a triumphant soundtrack. Just stillness. A kind of clarity that settles in the bones. 3 months passed. Claire stayed gone. Her name faded from inboxes and event flyers. Lumina Circle shut down without fanfare, the domain expired, the Instagram wiped clean, the LLC dissolved through a quiet legal process I didn't even have to initiate. Turns out identity theft looks a lot like paperwork when you catch it early. I never filed charges. Never went public with the details. I didn't need to. Because the version of me she'd tried to build, the paranoid one, the controlling one, the man unraveling at the edges, collapsed under its own weight. She designed it to withstand questions. Not evidence. And when the truth came out, it didn't shout. It just stood still and let her explain. I started speaking again, not about her, but about the architecture of manipulation. About how gaslighting doesn't always come with bruises. Sometimes it wears yoga pants and says things like, "This is just about your energy lately." I gave a talk at a local digital ethics summit. The title was simple. Receipts, Metadata, and the Fragility of Narrative Control. I walked through how keycard logs work. How timestamps tell stories. How you can trace a lie without ever raising your voice. The room was quiet the whole time. Afterward, a man in the audience waited until everyone else had left. He looked like someone who hadn't slept in a week. "My wife's been saying I'm imagining things," he said. "But now I think maybe I'm not." I didn't tell him what to do. I just handed him a card. The same one I once handed myself. Save everything. The truth doesn't need to be loud. It just needs to be recorded. And then I walked out into the night, calm, unshaken. Because once you've lived through someone else trying to edit your life, you learn to back up the original.
Thanks so much for watching. If you love a good revenge story, or if you've ever dreamed of getting the last word without saying much at all, you're in the right place. Be sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss a new savage ending. Because around here, karma always hits different.